So, what we want to do today is finish up this Whitman material and then start on our Malcolm X. It'll be a pretty good contrast in a way, even though you've got 100 years in between these people. Their attitude and behavior and feelings about America. I think it'll be an interesting contrast in many ways. I've told you before that, this is a very long, grueling movie. I actually would have, in many ways, preferred that I just could cut it down somewhat. It needs about a 50% editing job. But I don't have any way that I can edit these movies, and if I just show the second reel, then I think in some regards people feel they've been badly done by. So we're stuck with this thing, which is pretty long. So why bother? Well, because it fills a gap in some of the things that we're doing, and people find it edifying. It's more interesting than like reading a book on Malcolm X. So, not that Malcolm X is the be-all and end-all of religion among Afro-Americans. I hope he isn't. It does fill a gap, and I say people respond well to it. The only thing I don't like about it is the tediousness of this movie. It goes on and on and on and on. And the heroicization of the character. You say, we're not giving it a big build-up. No, I'm not giving it a big build-up mainly because I think it's boring. But we could just cut it down, like a little 45-minute version of this I don't know how long this movie is. I think it would be good just to get the material. But then you lose all the fun of it. So, and the entertainment value. So, we're stuck with what we have. So, what we'll do is we'll finish up Whitman here and then move over to the start of the movie. Any questions? Any questions about the exam? Any problems that you feel you're having with the exam? All the exams will be more or less the same. About 3 boring exams of that kind, and that'll be your class. I don't think it's something that you can't handle, is it? It's something, not something you want to fly to the moon on, but exams seldom are. So this is at least get you to do a bit of writing, express your thoughts. You don't have to go into a panic about forgetting something. So, basically I think it serves the purpose that we need to get served in this class. So that's what you can expect. Again, any questions, problems, difficulties, issues? Okay. Why are we doing Whitman? Again, I think because he expresses a kind of secular American religion. Not that he has any organized church or anyone follows him. But I think he expresses a feeling that a lot of people actually feel in one way or another. Not all parts of what he has to say, obviously. Some people feel more close to some, others feel more close to others, but no one is going to express everything that you feel. I mean, frankly, if I was not, or you were not brought up on a Jesus person, and if you had just looked at him as a person, the way he's presented in the materials, he may not express everything you feel as a person. But you've been taught to feel awe for that particular icon or characterization, etc. So you don't really criticize him. I don't know anyone who ever criticizes Jesus, except people like me. But he's like perfection personified. And there's some things that he has to say that I might not think are applicable to my life or existence. I don't think I'd like to live in certain of the ways that he is presented as recommending. So any character could, if you looked at him objectively without awe. I mean, the problem is that certain characters are awe-inspiring. In Islam, for instance, Muhammad is awe-inspiring. So therefore, no one dares criticize him. if you do in Islam, you get your throat cut. So, in fact, there's some downside to criticism of him. Severe downside. You say, why is there no dissent in the Muslim world? Well, no dissent in the Muslim world when someone can freely cut your throat as an idolater or a backslider or a heretic, and no one is going to object to that. Of course, there is not going to be any. There isn't going to be any criticism in the Islamic world until you free people in a modern state-backed freedom of religion environment, so that life is preserved. If they dare speak, you're not going to get any kind of criticism in the Muslims. I'm off the subject here, but I have to be honest with you on that particular thing. I frankly think that's what Bush, with all his flaws, is trying to achieve in Iraq, if he can say. If he's not able to speak because he doesn't know how to speak, but if he could speak with more three-word phrases, he would be able to express what he's trying to do, bring about a free democracy in the heart of that part of the world. You say, why? Well, because otherwise terrorism will continue to germinate, and then with the modern world of weapons of mass destruction, with the wealth that's centered in that part of the world, sooner or later people are going to get their hands on weapons of mass destruction, whether now or later, that can be used in a terrorist manner by people who are willing to, commit suicide. So it has a weird logic that those who don't want to pay attention to it put their heads in the sand. So, oh, it can never happen. Well, in fact, the day it does happen, you don't want to be here. It can never happen up until the day it does happen. Oh my God, how did that happen? Well, it's too late at that point. So unless you break down the situation, not to control an area, but to bring about more protection of civil liberties in an area so dissent can flourish, then people are going to be intimidated for the foreseeable future. And no free expression will occur. So you say, well, that's not our business. No, it wouldn't be ordinarily unless it was directed at us. And we found in September 11th, I'm giving a pep talk for these people because I actually believe they're right on this, being an Islamic specialist to some extent myself. September 11th unfortunately brought home the bare minimum of what can happen. The bare minimum of what can happen, not the maximum. And that's why people who want to hide from this and make believe that this doesn't exist are dreaming. So in order to criticize a given religious presentation, whether it's Islam, Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, or whatever, you have to have the people's rights protected. Even in Hinduism, time of Gandhi, there were terrorist organizations. Gandhi was assassinated by Hindu extremist organizations who objected to some of the spin that he was putting on things. Unless you have a situation where you can protect people's right to dissent, then the terrorists or the intimidators, who go on a rabbit hole, always win the day. Always win the day. If I live in a street in Orange County or South LA or anywhere, and there's people there who are murderers. Most of the people are decent, but there's a clique of about 15-20% who are murderers and cutthroats. And they murder people who speak their mind openly, like Thomas Jefferson. Let's say Thomas Jefferson lived on my street, and he wanted to speak his views about civil religion in America or something. And there were some extremist people who felt that they could murder people. In the end, the street would cave in. The street would not resist the cutthroats. And they talk about this street. So this is a really serious problem for the modern world. In the Western world, okay, it's gotten to the point where people's rights are more or less protected by the civil governments. It's happening in Central Europe now, more or less. Russia is just coming out of the dark ages on this. The Middle East is, God knows where they're at. I frankly think they're not even out of the dark ages on this particular issue. Far East seems to be well along towards coming out of this predicament. Countries like Japan and probably even Vietnam to some extent. I can't speak for China, but China has a civilization of a more tolerant, if you like, at least they don't seem to settle things by being intimidating, cutthroat behavior. So I think Chinese civilization tends to be more intellectual anyway. So we have certain trouble spots in the world, and I think that's what you guys are going to deal with the rest of your life. So coming back to Whitman, you don't have to agree with everything he says as a person to find some inspiration here. So the reason we're doing the memory of President Lincoln is out of this terrible struggle that we had in this country. He expresses a religious emotion that I think is fairly attractive, unique, powerful, and very moving. So that's why we're doing it. How you would put that in exam is up to you. Look at this section 6 and 7. Coffin that passes through lanes and streets, Lincoln's funeral procession, going through the country on the way back to what they call the West End. We call it the Middle West now, but the country hadn't gotten much further past the Middle West at that time in any significant numbers. The pomp of the unlooped flags, the cities draped in black. The closest thing to this we saw was 9/11. You guys remember, even though it was 3 years ago, what the situation was like back then, with firemen all over the country, expressing their solidarity with what happened in New York, and policemen the same, and then people everywhere with candles, even here in South Los Angeles and Orange County. You had people on overpasses with candles and vigils and flags. It was exactly this kind of atmosphere that you can, and it was a mourning atmosphere because 3,000 people had died. So with the show of the states themselves, as of Crepe Bell, women standing with processions long and winding, and flambeaux in the night. We even had the flambeaux in the night at that time. I never, in my memory of experience living in our country, remember anything like that, what followed the week or two after 9/11, in terms of the outpouring of emotion in a civil, religious mourning sense among people like yourselves. There was countless torches lit with the silent sea of faces and the unbared heads with the weight. So this is just for Lincoln now, with the depot, the arriving coffin, the somber face. It gives a really good picture, don't you think? Yet it has a certain rhythm with the dim-lit churches, so where amid these you journey, Lincoln, the coffin, with the tolling bells and that lovely double tolling like the bells. Here, coffin that slowly passes, I give you the sprig of lilac that I picked in my dooryard as I went out the steps in mid-April. And then he changes gears, which I think is really nice. But look, not for you alone, no, not just for you. Blossoms and branches, screens and coffins, all I bring. No, I'm Whitman. I go to the battlefields. I take care of the wounded. I write letters for the young men, both north and south, home to their parents. It's for everybody who has been killed in this horrendous situation we got ourselves into here. For fresh is the morning, thus would I chant a song for you, O sane and sacred death. And in his view, chanting a song for sane and sacred death, and now it's holy death, he's chanting a song for everyone. All over bouquets of roses, O death, I cover you over with rose and early lilies. And he has seen the death because he's been all on the battlefield for 2 years. He was down there for maybe 3, 1862 to 1865. But mostly and now the lilac that blooms the first. And if you know, as I said, the eastern part of the United States, you know what the lilac means in early spring. Copious I break the sprigs from the bushes. With loaded arms I come pouring for you. And it's easy to understand this, isn't it? It's just our English. It's not some fancy new poetry. For you in the coffins, all of you, O death. 8, change gears as he does. O a western orb sailing in the heaven. What's the western orb sailing in the heaven?
The sun.
Well, no, it's not the sun. It's the star. I think probably the North Star, one of those stars. I'm not sure. It could have been Venus or Jupiter. I'm not sure which one was shining at that time in the west, whether it was the North Star or a different one. But it's also Lincoln again. It's a double star. Lincoln was the star that came out of the west, and the star in the sky that does what? Tells Whitman that what? That Lincoln is going to die. The star that he saw when? A month previously. A mournful star drooping in the midnight sky. Do you ever take walks at night and you see a star that you think is important and significant to you? It happens to people, I think. Maybe you guys are too, opposed to superstition to let it happen to you. But if you admit it in your soul of souls, particularly when you're by yourself, not when you're with someone else, nothing ever speaks to you when you're with someone else. You're too busy talking to each other or something. But if you're alone and you're feeling lonely or you're down or you're excited or something like that, and you're out for some reason with the night sky, particularly at night, not so much in the day. In the day, I think bird flights do it too, as Lawrence will say in his book. But at night, it's the stars. And you see a star that has some significance to you, and you keep watching it. It can say what you're thinking back to you, basically. That's what he says. Now I know what you must have meant a month since I walked. Again, it sounds difficult to understand, but it isn't, is it? A month since I walked. A month ago. I knew this was going to happen a month ago. Or I knew something awful was coming. I could feel it. I could tell. As I walked in silence, the transparent shadow night. He liked to take walks at night. He was probably a bit of an insomniac. You could walk around Washington streets then, at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning or something. Look at the stars. I don't think I would give it too much of a try now. Things have improved in most urban areas. New York, you can probably walk on the streets now at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. You couldn't 20 years ago. So I don't know if you want to try South LA at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. No, not a good idea, huh? No, okay. I don't know what parts of LA you want to try on the streets without being in a car. I don't know LA as well as you guys might know. Are there any parts of LA you're going to go walking around without your car at night, 1 o'clock?
Only in the counties.
Only in the county outlying, yeah. So the streets of LA are not the kind of place you go walking around too much. Okay, so he could in Washington at that time. As I walked in silence, a transparent, shadowy night, as I saw you at some good tell as you bent to me night after night, the same star he saw every night there in the western sky. And of course it's in the west, so it's going to talk about a western thing. As you droop from the sky low down as if to my side, while the other stars all look on. So this star is doing crazy things in his mind, sort of like Van Gogh looking at Starry Night, if you've seen that painting. As we wandered together this solemn night, for something I know not what kept me from sleep, I was troubled. I couldn't sleep. This was March of 1865. As the night advanced and I saw on the rim of the west, how full you were of woe. As I stood, woe, sadness. As I stood on the rising ground in the breeze of the cool, transparent night, as I watched where you passed and was lost in the netherward black of the night, as my soul in its trouble, dissatisfied sank, as where you, sad orb, concluded, dropped in the night and was gone, as Lincoln is going to drop in the night and be gone. Change gears. Where is he going now? To the swamp. What's he going to? Is he a swamp rat? Why is he going to the swamp? Oh, there's a bird there. That's well known to people who are aficionados of beautiful and lovely birds. And the thing about this bird is that it's a solitary bird. It keeps to itself in the recesses away from settled places, which is why most of you probably have never seen one. I certainly haven't. It's called a hermit thrush for that reason. But apparently if you can hear one, I've never heard one, it has an extremely beautiful song. Captivating, beautiful, long, drawn out archipelago of music. Okay, Sing on there in the swamp, oh singer bashful and tender. I hear your notes. I was just talking to my bird in this bird cage this morning, you know. When you know a bird, the crazy thing is you think the birds have no being. They're just like dogs. The most amazing thing. You wouldn't think it, but a bird is just like a dog, except he's got feathers. But he behaves like a dog, he acts like a dog. They're watchdogs. They squawk when someone comes in the house. They try to warn you, they greet you, they do all these crazy things. That they are totally feathered dogs. It's the weirdest, I never knew that until I'm half dead. So I'm just telling you that birds can be something you talk to. I would never have believed it myself. I hear your notes, I hear your call. Yeah, that's exactly what happens when I walk in my house. I say, yeah, I hear you, it's okay, I'm coming, don't worry, I'm coming. They actually want you to come and pet them. This is the weirdest thing. Once you start to pet a bird, it squawks like mad every time it sees you to come and pet it. It's just the weirdest thing. You wouldn't think it, but there you are. I'm giving you an advertisement for a pet bird. The bigger the bird, the more this is true. The little maybe sparrows or warblers, little creatures that dart all around, not so much, but the parrot-like birds, parakeets and things, that's what they're all like. They want you to touch them. But a moment I linger, for the lustrous stars detain me. Who, which? The star in the west and Lincoln. The star, you see, my departing comrade holds and detains me. Lincoln is his departing comrade. Oh, how shall I warble myself for the dead one there I loved? Lincoln now. And you see, he's already said he loves him now. He repeats it. He loves him. Perish the thought if any of these political people were to come to a bad end. Would you say, I loved them, Kerry, Bush, Bush Sr., Clinton maybe up to the point he was caught in the cloakroom with his pants down or whatever. Some people probably loved him. Reagan, some people love, but not the way this one loves Lincoln, I think. He loves. And you understand why. There's something there that you can realize could be loved. And he explains it. How should I deck my song for the large, sweet soul? Large, sweet soul. Again, talking about your president as a large, sweet soul. I can't imagine anyone in recent memory over the last 100 years you could describe like that. That is gone. And how about Hoover? Large, sweet soul. President Harding, Calvin Coolidge. You probably don't know who these people are. Large, sweet souls. Oh, Rutherford B. Hayes. I doubt it, really. It was unique. There's something unique happened there, obviously, in our history. And what even the Southerners, whether they like to admit it or not, will probably ultimately have to admit that there was something unique there. And what shall I, because they came up against a unique force, because they thought that that would be easy. They would just take off and no one would actually be willing to go through that grueling, ordeal. And without a leader like that, I'm sure it never would have, that the ordeal would, people wouldn't have carried it through. Certainly, look at Iraq, there's, about thousands of the number of casualties. Someone was telling me that there may be an average of 2 a day in Iraq, maybe, whereas in the Second World War there were like 300 a day average. And in the Civil War there was probably sometimes 3,000 a day. And who would go through that? It's not this country the way it is at the present time, obviously. So, large, sweet soul. And what shall my perfume be for the grave of him I love? Again, I love. We saw this. Sea winds blown from the east, blown from the eastern sea, blown from the western sea, till they are on the prairies meeting. That's the perfume. The winds of this country. These and with these and my chant, the wind of my song. I'll perfume the grave of him I love. And what shall I hang on the chamber walls of the mausoleum? What shall the pictures be that I hang on the wall to adorn the burial house of him I love? Yeah, him I love. And he then describes America. It's a bit too sentimental for me to read the whole thing, but you can get the point. Pictures of growing spring and farms and houses and hills and cities and workshops and people going to their work and so on. Panoramas of the whole country in its peaceful aspect. And lo, body and soul, this land, my own Manhattan, with spires and sparkling and hurrying tides and ships and barren ample land in the south and the north and Ohio's shores and flashing Missouri and far-spreading prairies, the most excellent sun, and he goes on like that. 13 changes back to the swamp. Sing on, you gray brown bird. Sing from the swamps, the recesses pour your chant. Sing, O dearest brother, warble your reedy song. Liquid, loud human song, with voice of uttermost woe, liquid and free and tender, and so on. O wondrous singer, you only I hear, yet the star holds me, but will soon depart, the memory of Lincoln. Yet the lilac with mastering odor holds me. All these themes now he's putting together. Lilac, star, bird, and him as poet. All those are the four overriding themes of this crazy poem that you would never think is a good funeral poem, and yet it turns out that it is. So he talks about the country again, the summer approaching with richness, the fields, the streets throbbing, the cities falling upon them and all, and among them all, enveloping me with the rest, appeared the cloud, the long black trail, and I knew death, its thought, and the sacred knowledge of death. So he announces finally his climactic theme, that he knows death, he's seen it, he knows what it is, its thought, and the sacred knowledge of death. And then he portrays, he's going to build up to this chant to death that he's going to give before he comes to an end of this long outpouring. Then with the knowledge of death on one side of me, and the thought of death close walking on the other side of me. So two things, the knowledge of death is one comrade on one hand, as he said in that earlier poem, three camarados. Here's his three camarados now. The knowledge of death on the one side, the thought of death close walking on the other side. So we do have a really serious poem here. I mean, one of the most serious in the history of the country. And I in the middle, as with companions, and holding the hands of the companions. He's holding the knowledge of death and the thought of death as his two companions, holding hands as he would young men whom he loves. I fled forth to the hiding, receiving night that talks not. I go to the dim night that doesn't speak. Where is he going? Into the swamp with these companions, these camaradas. To the shores of the water. Did you get this when you read it? I think it's difficult to get right away. The path by the swamp, to the solemn shadowy cedars and ghostly pines of the southern swamps, where everything is still at night. And the singer so shy, the bird, to the rest he received me, the bird finally spoke to me. The gray brown bird I know received us comrades three. Who are the comrades three? Whitman, the thought of death, and the knowledge of death. And he sang this carol of death, and a verse for him I love, and one for him I love too. And Lincoln always in the background as someone he loves. That's about what, the sixth time he said he loves him? From the deep secluded recesses, from the fragrant cedars, from the ghostly pines, there still came the carol of the bird. And the charm of the carol rapt me as I held by the hands my comrades in the night, the thought of death and the knowledge of death. And the voice of my spirit tallied the song of the bird. And I responded. My spirit tallied what the bird was singing. And here is the song that the bird sang that his spirit tallies. I'm sorry to read it to you, it's boring I know, but I'll do it. Come lovely and soothing, death undulate round the world, serenely arriving, he repeats that like the tolling bells. Now there's no rhyme here from what I can see. There's nothing, and yet this is his best effort at a perfect poem, I think. In the day and the night, to all, to each, sooner or later, delicate death. Some of you said he worked hard on this material. I guess this one he did right here. this bit here, you certainly worked hard on. Praise be the fathomless universe, because this is the carol for Lincoln. For life and joy and objects and knowledge curious, and for love, sweet love, but praise, praise, praise for the sure and winding arms of cool enfolding death. Dark mother always gliding near, it's a kind of prayer chant with soft feet. That's why I say it's like a church, a religious chant. Carol, he calls it. Have none chanted for thee a chant of fullest welcome? Then I chanted for thee, I glorify thee above all. I bring thee a song that when thou must indeed come unfalteringly. Approach, strong deliverance, when it is so. When thou hast taken them, I joyously sing the dead. Lost in the loving floating ocean of thee, love they in the flood of thy bliss, O death. From me to thee glad serenades, dances for thee. You could read this at a funeral, actually, to someone you love. Dances for thee, I propose, saluting the adornments, feastings for thee, and the sights of the open landscape and the high spread sky are fitting, and life in the fields and the huge and thoughtful night. The night and silence undermining a star, the ocean shore, and the husky whispering wave whose voice I know, and the soul turning to thee, O vast and well-veiled death. Look at those nice adjectives, well-veiled death. And the body gratefully nestling close to thee as he winds down. Over the treetops I float thee a song, over the rising and sinking waves, over the mirrored fields and the prairies wide, over the dense packed cities all in the teeming wharfs and waves, I float this carol, and he repeats himself as usual. With joy, the tolling bells, to thee, O death. And to the tally of my soul, loud and strong, kept up the great brown bird with a pure, delicate note spreading, filling the night. That's why I went to the swamp, to get this song that he could sing. It's crazy, obviously, but still quite moving. Loud in the pines and cedars, with pure deliberate notes spreading with a filling night. Loud in the pines and cedars dim, clear in the freshness, moist and swamp perfume. He's not quite finished yet, as you'll see. And I, with my comrades there in the night, his two comrades, thought of death, knowledge of death, and he knows it, he's seen it, he's been down there. While my sight that was bound, my eyes unclosed as to long panoramas of visions. And I think now, I don't know if you've read the Apocalypse, I've seen the armies of the night and things like that, but he now gives this apocalyptic vision of what he saw on the battlefields. And I think this is the really climactic moment of the poem, right here. And I think it's actually very moving, even though it's only a couple of paragraphs. And I saw askant the armies. I saw, as in noiseless dreams, hundreds of battle flags, borne through the smoke of the battles and pierced with missiles. I saw them and carried hither and yon through the smoke, and torn and bloody, and at last but a few shreds left on the staffs, and all in silence, and all the staffs all splintered and broken. What's he envisioning here? The Civil War battles that he's seen, and all the shredded battle flags that he's witnessed going through the various charges and smoke and you know, musketry and cannonade type situations. I saw battle corpses, myriads of them, and the white skeletons of young men. I saw them, and I saw the debris of all the slain soldiers of the war. But I saw they were not as they thought. They themselves were fully at rest. They suffered not. The living remained and suffered. The mother suffered, and the wife and child and the musing comrades suffered, and the armies that remained suffered. Passing the visions, passing the night, passing, unloosing the holds of my comrade's hand, passing the song of the hermit's bird and the telling song of my soul, victorious song, death's outlet song, yet varying ever alteringly, song as low and wailing yet clear the notes, rising and falling, flooding the night, sadly sinking and fading as warning and warning, and yet again bursting with joy, covering the earth, filling the spread of heaven as that powerful song the night I heard from the recesses passing. I leave thee, lilac, with heart-shaped leaves. I leave thee there in the dooryard blooming, returning with every spring. I cease from my song for thee, from my gaze to thee in the west, fronting the west, communing with thee, O comrade lustrous with silver face in the night. He's communing both with the star and his Lincoln, his fallen comrade, so lustrous, silver in the face of the night. Yet to keep in all retrievance out of the night the song, the wondrous chant of the great brown bird, the towering chant, the echo roused my soul with the lustrous and drooping star, with the countenance full of woe, with the holders holding my hand, the two companions, nearing the call of the bird. Comrades I, and I in their midst, and remember ever to keep for the dead I love so well. Now all the dead, that he served in the battlefield and all the dead young men that he loved so well, all of them. And now finally for his chief mourning persona, for the sweetest, wisest soul of all my days and lands, and this for his dear sake, lilac and star and bird twine with the chant of my soul, there in the fragrant pines, the cedars dusk and dip. Well, I don't know, maybe you can see why I read that poem to you, or assigned that poem to you, maybe you can't. Maybe you think it's a lot of cornball stuff, or maybe you don't. I feel, and I may be stupid, that's the greatest poem written in America so far. Beyond comparison, but I may be stupid and I may be wrong. The reason I think that is because of the sentiments that it expresses in all directions, all the different things that he says there, even though it certainly doesn't reach the heights you might want to reach. But I don't think you could put a poem next to it from American, I'm not talking about other countries, I can't say, from American culture that would stand up and be greater than that. Because of the pure emotion he feels, and then the religious sentiment that he's trying to express in that poem that you certainly can't miss. He doesn't know exactly what it is he's saying or how he feels about these things, but he is trying to express this thing. And of course, the meaning it has for our history as a country and religion in America in general, which is why I read it. And I read it to you guys because I don't think it gets read enough. And since I know a lot of you people will be teachers, hopefully at some point in your life, maybe a quarter of you will be teachers. Maybe you'll have something that you can read your students occasionally, that we can lift the level of their daily life a little higher than that daily routine, and teach them the meaning of some of what the history has been for others, what history has been for him. So that is basically all I have to say about that, as far as Gump would say. Any of you guys want to respond or say something about that? Okay. You'll put that poem away someplace then for yourselves and trot it out at some point in your life and surprise people just when they're feeling blue, that you got something that in fact can actually feel blue with them, but perhaps cheer them up too. I hope that you do. So now we'll change gears and we will let's see what time it is. We got a half hour. We start this thing up if we can make it work. You want to turn that off? Let's see if we can make this thing work. So we'll start with this.